answers. Easter seals today.
Hi, I'm Carol Galt, and I'm your host today on Easter Seals Today. We have with us Rhonda Logsdon, and she is the Assistant Director of Kentucky Spin Incorporated. Welcome.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Well, let's just jump right in here and get started, and let's just talk a little bit about what Kentucky Spin is.
Well, it's Kentucky Special Parent Involvement Network, and we're a nonprofit statewide organization where all family members or persons with disabilities helping one another. One of the main things that we do is we provide training on topics such as IEP, basic law, self-esteem, stress management, but then also we have a whole resource library of information that we send out to families and professionals. And then also we help kind of one-on-one help them kind of step through the process to access education for their child.
Now, I have learned that Kentucky Spin does a lot of things. So this is going to be the first show in a three-part series.
Yes, and we're so excited about that.
And so we're going to cover a lot of ground. And one of the things we want to talk about first in general is just how the organization can help families.
Well, and again, like I said about the workshops, and then you can call in. We have an 800 number, and we can help step you through the process of having your child evaluated for special education, or if you have questions. Also, we can help on resources that are available, such as Medicaid waivers, how families go about accessing that, and kind of help with a whole variety of stuff. And if we don't know the answer, we'll work to try to find the right person who can help you.
So just in general, Spin is an advocate for the family?
Yes. Yes, bottom line. Yeah.
Bottom line.
Yeah.
Okay, just cutting straight to the chase.
Yes. And really our role is to help to enable parents, family members, and individuals with disabilities to be able to advocate on behalf of their self or their family. We work off of a families training families model, and we think it's very important for families to develop very strong parent professional relationships to help their child best. So.
And real quickly before we move a little further, I know that you're really an expert in this area because as we were talking, you also have family members with disability. This is something is very near and dear to your heart.
Yes. It's not just a job ever, you know, and everything. My family, there are 3 of my siblings who have disabilities. My twin sister had a severe learning disability, and as an adult was diagnosed with bipolar. She probably should have been a lot sooner. But at our age, we didn't know that then. So, and Robin's our special angel in heaven now. And then my middle brother has cerebral palsy and uses a power wheelchair. And then my youngest brother has ADHD. And they all had IEPs through school. They are all brighter than I could wish to be. So a lot of misconceptions sometimes that people with disabilities don't know what's going on, and they actually do better than a lot of other people. So.
Right. Okay, well, let's just jump right in and let's talk about IDEA or IDEA.
IDEA, yeah, a lot of people refer to it as that. One of the main grants that Kentucky Spin does have is the PTI, the Parent Training and Information Project for the state of Kentucky. And what that is under IDEA, IDEA is the federal law, which is a specific education law that helps children who qualify in the school system. And also there's different parts of it, which we'll go into later, for the different age groups. But it's important that people know that that is a federal law, and it's specific education law for children 0 through 21.
And I think that we do have a slide that talks about what age IDEA serves.
Yes.
And so maybe we can get that up on screen.
Okay.
And we can look at that for the audience, and then we can just go ahead and walk through that. And then I think we also have one that talks about the principles of that as well.
Do.
So right here, I believe that we have the ages.
And what it is with the federal law, you know, it's broken down into different parts. In Part C is actually what is the early intervention system, which is in Kentucky, First Steps. And what that is the 0 through 3. It is what is designed to help the families. And when you qualify with that, you actually will have what is called an IFSP, an Individual Family Service Plan. And then when you go to the Part B section of it, you have, that is the age 3 through 21, and it goes to an IEP, an Individual Education Program. So we want to make sure everybody understands that both of those systems are all under the federal law idea.
Okay, so both Part B and Part C are under the federal law.
Federal law, yes.
Okay, all right. I can see that this can get very confusing and why
it can.
Kentucky Spin would be such a benefit to a family.
Well, and I hope that we always are. And one of the things too, because we have to throw acronyms with everything, and then, you know, in some states they may call it one thing, but it all boils down to how it comes out of the federal law. And to further confuse things, I'm a little OCD, so they didn't do it in order. So they did Part C is the 0 to 3, the youngest ones, and Part B is the 3 through 21. So we just kind of wanted to take this opportunity to make sure everybody understood that that came out of that same federal law.
Okay, all right. So let's move on to the next slide, and we'll talk about the principles in IDEA.
And there are some very key principles with that. FAPE is free appropriate public education, and what that means is that the child is entitled to be educated at no cost to the family. Now, that doesn't mean if there's, say, a charge that all children have to pay in school, like a fee or, you know, for field trip, different things like that. That doesn't mean that that child doesn't have to pay too. But the family is not charged any money for that child to be educated when they qualify under IDEA. So that's important to know. And then an appropriate evaluation, making sure that it's what's appropriate for the child and that the child is being evaluated, you know, not only in the right categories, but making sure we're looking at the whole big picture. So we really get what's going on and how to help the child best.
Okay.
And then another one, the IEP, the Individual Education Program, which is the 3 through 21, which in the 3-part series we're going to concentrate a lot on, is that what it is the child does have this program set in place. It's not just a special education is a place. It is a program that is to be done for the child.
And oftentimes, and we'll get into this, I know
Yes.
more, but oftentimes IEPs are written and have goals that are attainable, and they bring in the teacher and the parent. And
yes, and it's very key to have all of them there, because anyone, and to also have the child there too, when it's age appropriate and if it's appropriate based on their disability, because they are important making the program and should be an equal member of the team. So everything is successful. One of the things too on that is, you know, under the 0 to 3, as I had said before, is the IFSP, which is the Individual Family Service Plan that will be written for the child. Now, on that too is there is a key term, LRE, least restricted environment, and this is very key, just like FAPE, the free appropriate public education, is that the child is going to be educated in the least restricted environment possible, meaning all children should start in the regular classroom and different accommodations and modifications brought in that are going to help them be successful, and only then, if you need to look at other settings, then you do, based on what's appropriate for that child.
Okay.
So, and a lot of times there's that misconception, if I have my child labeled with a disability, that means they have to go to that certain class, or, you know, it's really about doing what's best for the child and getting an appropriate program for the child.
Okay.
So.
All right.
Well, and the procedural safeguards, which in the third show that we're going to do, we'll go into depth with that. But through the federal law, there are parts that where you have the procedural safeguards that are set in place so that the school and the family is protected. And if you are not feel that things are appropriate, you have other means or things and steps that you can go through to get resolved for the child. So.
All right, well, that's a good overview of the principles of IDEA or IDEA. Now, let's one more time tell them what that acronym stands for.
IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Education Improvement Act, and a lot of people will refer to IDEA. Okay. And then when we're talking, another opportunity here, when we're talking about IEPs, obviously in Kentucky we throw another name in with stuff, so if you ever hear ARC, Admissions and Release Committee meeting, or IEP meeting, they all mean one and the same. Those are just some different acronyms that are used in the state. So,
okay, and will anyone with disabilities will qualify for these?
No, and that is a misconception too.
Okay,
not just children who are diagnosed with a disability. The way IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Improvement Act, works is it has to be proven that their disability educationally affects them. So, just because they may be diagnosed with a disability from someone, if it's not proven through the evaluation and the process that their disability educationally affects them, then they would not qualify. So, and a lot of times that can be very confusing.
Okay, and how does one go about proving that? When you say it has to be proven, how
well,
would one
and the
go about doing
proven
that?
is the evaluation and the evaluation process, and making sure, just as we had said with the definitions, that it's an appropriate evaluation, that we're getting the whole big picture. Now, and we'll talk in the second segment about the evaluation process and how you go about that. But if you have had evaluations done outside of and the child's been diagnosed, you can request that that evaluation be used in part or whole as part of the evaluation the school will do or use. So it's very key, because an appropriate evaluation should not look at just one single measure to determine that.
Okay.
So sometimes it can get kind of confusing, and each case is, just like, my brother has cerebral palsy. What works for him is not going to work for someone else who has cerebral palsy. Just as when you evaluate someone, you have to look at, yes, you may be evaluating for a certain disability, but everybody is an individual person, and it's not going to look the same for everybody. So,
okay,
so that's key to keep in mind.
Okay, great. And let's talk about how IDEA relates to Kentucky law. Because I know you said it's different from state to state, and sometimes the words and the acronyms that you hear, the things that they're called, but it is a federal law.
Yes. And so you have IDEA, and I have to be able to picture stuff. So you have IDEA, and then you have what's called CARA, another acronym, Kentucky Administrative Regulations. And then you will have the local policies or procedures for the local district or county. The thing that's important to keep in mind is the federal law always supersedes the state or local policies or procedures unless they go above and beyond in favor of the child, or the federal law allows you to determine as a state a certain thing. And as we go through some of the other two segments, I will point out and give you specific examples of that where Kentucky was able to decide, or where they went above and beyond, so you would go off of the CARA, the Kentucky Administrative Regulation. They all work hand in hand, but it is important to know that the federal law is always going to override the other unless they go above and beyond for the child, or unless the federal law lets the state decide. So, and everything, as you can imagine, just like everything else, there are always those, but yeah, if it's this,
right.
So those are things that we can help with at Kentucky Spin. We have the 800 number you can call, email, we're on Facebook, anything like that, we're able to help, and you could send us questions, because if we don't know the answer, we will find the person who does.
Okay,
so.
All right. And then that was going to be my next question. How do you access Kentucky Spin?
Well, we have the 800 number, which is 800-525-7746, or we also have our website, www.kentuckyspin.com, or you can email us. We have a Facebook page, so we're looking at a whole variety of means that we send out information. Our main office is in Louisville, but we do serve the whole state and travel as we have today,
right? Exactly.
Quite a bit. But we serve the whole state, and we have consultants throughout the state that can help also.
Well, and just as you came down to share all this information with us from Louisville, how many employees do you have? How do we go about?
Well, now we're very, very small but mighty.
Right. I understand.
Just like a lot of nonprofit organizations. So there's not a lot of full-time staff. But we do have parent consultants that we have that do workshops throughout the state. We also, staff members, do workshops. We partner with a lot of other organizations, just like Easter Seals, which has been a wonderful partnership. And really to reach out, we schedule workshops throughout the state. But if you would like us to come and do a workshop in your area, the key thing here, and I should have said in the beginning, there are no fees for our services. It is free. I'm big on free. You know, there is no fee. We will come and do the workshop. We will bring the packets, everything, the presenter, and that is provided. You know, even if there's just a couple of parents that would like us to come down, it doesn't have to be anything really formal. We'll come, we'll sit down, and we'll do a workshop. It could just be sitting around the table. You know, so I don't want people to feel like it's going to be, you know, very uptight or nervous, because this is to help the families, and also we can do this, help and step them through the process one-on-one as well. So.
Well, I know we talked earlier, just for instance, these segments will be aired, but they'll also be on the college's YouTube channel, you know, where people will be able to access them.
Yes.
So those kind of things, you'll be able to direct them just simply for this information. But
yes,
those are the kind of things that you're looking for, to be able to network and get the information out with people,
yes,
so they can walk through the steps, step by step, and just
yes,
have it and start looking in a place to walk them through.
Yes, and we're going to share also the links through our Facebook, through our listservs. You know, we have a monthly newsletter, so we'll make sure that we're sharing those. And then also to be able, we're working to be able to provide them on DVDs for families as well. So yeah, we're really excited about that.
All right, all right. Well, thank you so much
for
joining us today, and thank you for joining us on this segment of Easter Seals Today. And please join us for segment 2 with Rhonda, and we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you. I'm Carol Galt, and join us again. Hi, thank you for joining us again. I'm Carol Galt, and we're here with Rhonda Logsdon, and we're back for the second part of a 3-part series. And we're talking about Kentucky Spin, Inc. And in this section, we're going to cover an overview of the special education process. We just talked about IDEA, and so now we're going to talk about the special education process.
Yes.
You want to tell me just a little bit about what is special education?
Well, it is, it's an actual program for a child that qualifies under IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Education Improvement Act. And what it is the child will have the IEP, the Individual Education Program, and that is actually a program, and it's not necessarily a place. So it is, you know, what will assist the child to be able to compete with their peers, and actually give them the assistance they need if the child qualifies under IDEA and have an IEP that their disability educationally affects them.
Okay, all right. And as we had in the first segment, we had some slides, and we also have another one coming up here that talks about what the special education process is. So let's talk a little bit about this slide.
Okay. There is, in the process, the first thing is the referral, and then you're going to have the evaluation, then eligibility, and then if the child qualifies, then you will have the IEP, the Individual Education Program, and then the last thing that is to be decided is placement. Again, just like I had said, special education is not necessarily a location. it is an actual program, and placement is based on what the appropriate IEP that is developed for the child. Then you're going to know what the appropriate placement is. And of course, just to kind of reference, in our first part, we had talked about those key terms that are in the idea, which is one of them being LRE, the least restricted environment. So it's always good to keep that in mind, because they are to be educated with their same age peers unless that is not appropriate for that child. So
okay, all right. So let's talk a little bit about referral too. Who can refer a child?
Anyone can refer a child that works with the child. It could be the parent, the guardian. We have a lot of grandparents raising grandchildren. Anyone can refer the child to be evaluated. It could be a teacher who thinks that the child should be evaluated. Anyone that works with the child. So it doesn't have to be, it's who thinks that there may be a disability that is educationally affecting the child. It's not just only certain people can ask. So parents have every right to ask that the child be evaluated.
And how do you do that?
We always recommend, you can do that verbally, you can request it, or in writing. We always, because it's very key, documentation is key. We always recommend that you put that in writing.
Okay.
And actually we have, and you can call us or email us, there's a very helpful booklet that I'm big on samples. So it has sample letters that were developed by NYCHE, which is the National Information Center, and they have a lot of different materials, and we can send those to you. They have developed this to where it gives samples of requesting for a referral for a child to be evaluated, requesting the actual evaluation, requesting a meeting, different things, so it helps give you something to work from, because I love being able to work from an example. So, and we can send that to you. You can access it through the website. Just let us know.
All right. Then one of the other things that we have is the evaluation that was on the slide. Let's talk about that for just a little bit.
Well, and with the evaluation, now the parent or the guardian does have to sign for the child to be evaluated. Of course, we said anyone can refer a child, but before an evaluation can begin, the parent or guardian has to sign for that child to be evaluated. In our first part, we had talked about IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Improvement Act, and how that is the federal law, and then you have your state and local policies and procedures unless they go above and beyond in favor of the child, or unless the state can decide. Here are one of the key parts that is an example of where the state was able to decide. One of the last time that IDEA was reauthorized, they had stated that it could be 60 calendar days, which is important here, 60 calendar days, unless the state already had a timeline in place. Calendar days counts weekends, holidays, everything. But since Kentucky had in place 60 school days, that is what we go off of in Kentucky. So it's key to keep in mind that it's 60 school days, so you're not counting weekends, holidays, summer break. Once you sign the parental consent to evaluate, then as you could say, the clock starts ticking and you start counting your 60 school days. It's important to sign that parental consent to evaluate immediately, because you don't have a time frame to work with until you have granted permission for your child to be evaluated. So it's really key to get that signed, so that, because you can imagine you want things in place, and so does the school, as soon as possible for the child. So we need to be able to get that clock going so that the child can be evaluated, because the school's not able to do anything until you sign that they can do it.
Okay.
So that's very key to keep in mind there.
So how do you understand what areas they should evaluate the child in? I know we talked about the referral and doing that in a written manner, which is beneficial. Do you talk about that at that? Do you make suggestions? Who does that and how?
Well, one of the things, and I would suggest in the letter when you're talking with school, is to let them know that you have concerns, or if the child has been diagnosed with a disability outside of school. Again, they have to be evaluated through this process to qualify to show that the disability educationally affects the child. But what can be done is, if any documentation where they've been evaluated and diagnosed with a disability, concerns that you have that the child, they seem to have a little delay in this area. So any keys like that, their current teachers, if they are seeing certain areas that they feel that the child should be evaluated, the best advice to keep in mind is that you want to get the whole big picture. So you can't just look at one certain area. A good example I could give you, my twin sister. She had the specific learning disability. If you had only looked at Robin in a certain area, because she was so well, just like the rest of us, at covering up areas that we have more difficulty in, you would not have ever seen that learning disability. So making sure that it is a overall evaluation, getting at the whole big picture. There are, which we will talk about more in detail, there are different categories that a child can qualify under. And sometimes for children, especially if they're younger, again, we're talking about children 3 through 21 under the Part B of IDEA that is through the public school system. Now, there is a category, which we'll talk more in detail later, that is age 3 through 8, which is developmental delay. And sometimes if it's not so clear what the actual disability is, my brother's cerebral palsy, we knew what it was. It didn't change, or we knew what it was. It was cerebral palsy. But for some children, you don't know exactly what's going on. So they may qualify under the developmental delay category. So making sure that you have an overall good picture of where the child's at, that's the best evaluation, and by taking different means to get that.
And if a parent doesn't agree, they can be reevaluated. And
yes, one of the key things again too that I want to mention is that if the evaluation comes back and the family is not in agreement with that evaluation, or it says they don't qualify, they have the right to request what is, here's another acronym, IEE, Independent Education Evaluation, at no cost to the family. Now, you can't just go take your child and go get an evaluation and take the bill back to the school. You do have to request that through the meeting that you will have, and then there will be an impartial person from outside of school that you will be able to have your child evaluated through. Now, not only just in this initial evaluation, but again, as I had spoke about, IDEA, the federal law, and the state. If the state law, if it goes above and beyond in favor of the child, then that will override, but only in those circumstances, or if they allowed the state to decide. One of the things that is an area here too is that in the CARA, Kentucky Administrative Regulations, not just with the initial evaluation, but with reevaluation, anytime that you do not agree, every time that child's evaluated, if you do not agree with that, you have the right to an IEE, Independent Education Evaluation. Okay. Now, you need to request that through the school and the proper channels, but you are entitled to that.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Rhonda, so much.
Thank you.
And we will move on to our next segment here, and we'll close out for today.
Okay.
But in our next segment, we'll talk about eligibility and some more things in special education.
Yeah.
And we appreciate you joining us so much here on Easter Seals today, and you taking the time to share these things with us.
Well, thank you.
And we ask that everyone join us for the conclusion with the segment 3.
Thank you.
So thank you again. Thank you for joining us here on Easter Seals today, and please join us for Easter Seals with segment 3, and we'll talk more about this. Thank you again. I'm Carol Galt, your host.